Jamshedpur have won the Hero ISL. Hyderabad are the Hero Indian Super League champions.
25 Hero ISL games out of the 24 days in February that are remaining. At the start of the month, of course, we had a bit of a breather because of the carryover of the fixtures from match week 6 into match week 7. But now, coming into the business end of the season, we have a lot to go over. I know, which is why we've also got this episode of the Let's Football Live Show to discuss that and more with Pulasta Dhar and Erik Paartalu. So guys, come on in quickly because we have a bit to pour over from what happened in the past match week to now going forward. We have a few cracking encounters coming up. We had HFC versus MCFC at the Mumbai Football Arena, which was quite an exciting encounter. But before we get into all of that, I just want to ask you guys, you having a good day? You seem a little tired from all the traveling that you've been doing, Erik.
Yeah, don't know what I look like on camera without my makeup on, but yeah, it's been a long week, but it's been a great week of traveling around the country. I think I did about 8 games in the space of 6 days, so it was fantastic to get around to Kochi and Kolkata a few times, and yeah, it's starting to heat up now. You can see, some results are being, hotly contested and quite close in terms of the score lines. So teams are starting to get a little bit fearful of that 6th position, and there's a lot of teams, trying to vie for that spot and getting themselves into the playoffs. So it's going to be exciting running to the finish of the season.
Yeah. So let's start with you, Erik, and with Mumbai City FC versus Hyderabad FC. We had that play out at the Mumbai Football Arena, a match that all of us were extremely excited about. You could see by the reaction of both teams after the full-time whistle that there's a great deal of mutual respect between both the managers and the players as well. Both teams pushed each other hard in that game. But then after that game ended with Mumbai City FC now, for all intents and purposes, probably having wrapped up the league shield, barring something massive which happens from now till the end of the season, it's time to look a bit forward now to the actual playoffs. And keeping that in mind, keeping how Hyderabad FC played, do you reckon that in a one-off game, they have as good a chance of beating anybody on their day than as Mumbai City FC? In fact, they've gone on to have a great season and they've not lost against Mumbai so far.
Mumbai City had 2 of their best players not playing. Joe and Greg Stewart entered the game in the last 10 minutes. They were firmly in control of that football match. They had their moments, Hyderabad. I don't think they did enough to win the game. They certainly had, their moments, but I think Mumbai City attacked really well. Chunk, they could have scored early. It took them a while to come to grips with him. Let's not forget it was a penalty they scored. So Hyderabad defended quite well in the end when you look at the scoreline. But without Jahul, without Greg Stewart, they still managed to get, a point. And they were in control of that football match. I'm looking at Hyderabad now. Do they upset the apple cart and bring João Victor and Katamani back in if they're fully fit? Because I believe that makes them stronger. But the chemistry they've got right now, they're not losing games. They've got this the points total they had last season. Things are looking great for Manolo Marquez. But if they come back into contention, João Victor and Katamani, I'm wondering if he's going to be tempted to change it or does he leave it the way it is? Because right now they're not good enough to beat Mumbai City FC. Nobody is. But possibly with those 2, it might get them across the line.
Yeah. Plus, HFC are having a much better season this season statistically than they did even in the last season, which they ended up as champions in. Do you think Manolo Marquez this season is overachieving with the squad at his disposal?
I think it shows his quality. I like to call him the Godfather of all the head coaches in the Hero ISL. I think he admitted that the side has slightly overachieved, but it shows his quality as a coach. If you speak to the players at Hyderabad, the likes of Sana Singh or Yasir, Akash Mishra, they will all tell you that the man is a master at teaching a team how to move on the pitch, and that's what they're doing. But I think they've sacrificed a bit of bravery and a bit of entertainment factor this season to maintain this control. They've given up a little bit of entertainment factor to get back that control. He's based this season on a tight defense, but without João Victor, to have Borja and Hitesh go through the season and play like that, I think it's fantastic coaching. And I think you have to give credit not only to the head coach, but also to the players for soaking up every bit of information. And man management, absolutely fantastic. The Sana Nim man management, brilliant. The Halichar and Rohit Danu man management, fantastic. I think the players buy into what he says. And now in this year, he's the boss. He's the ultimate boss. And he's just maintained that control. And he has showed us over the last 3 years, he can play differently every season and get results. I think it's a great reflection of his abilities.
Yeah. Erik, just to stay on HFC for a bit, we remember that when they lost 2 consecutive games earlier in the season, especially after the ATKMB game, Manolo Marquez, his press conference, he came out and said that he really lashed into his players, actually. He said that maybe it's either time for some of the players to go or maybe it's time for the manager to go. So when a manager says something like that in a press conference, and having been an ex-player yourself, it can go either way, right? Either the players can turn around and say, why is he going on saying all that? But then with HFC, it seems to have had an effect.
I think there's a fear factor with Manolo Marquez. He might seem pretty on TV, but I'm sure behind closed doors, he's quite demanding. He seems to be an approachable coach, but he's a type of coach that I imagine you want to try and impress. You go into training every day. You play your game on the weekend. You want his approval. They're the good masterminds. I think that Puller's trying to touch on that in terms of being an experienced coach. It's not about turning up and putting good sessions on and making a team play well. It's how do you mastermind people's mindsets and how do you influence them in order to get results? And I think when you look at their results, they haven't really had any blowouts. The 2 losses that they have had, they weren't blowouts, 3, 4, 5 goals. It's gone by the solitary goals. So it tells you something about the mentality of the coach and the team. Now, when that happens, I'm sure there would have been a chain reaction. Defending champions expect to be up here. The levels are always up here in terms of training, getting results. So when he went through that little spell, it 100% lit something underneath. And I think some players were underperforming, making silly mistakes. And I think, again, going back to what Puller's saying, the way that they're playing this year is probably a consequence of those results. We love to see how he played the first year. It's quite side to side, didn't go forward enough. Last year was keep possession. Now this year he's got this option to go long and sit in and defend. So I think that's come because they conceded goals and lost those games. He's gone, right, let's just not concede goals. And what have they conceded? Like 10 goals or something. So the lowest in the league in terms of being that back four and surprisingly without the likes of Katamani, Gurmit's having a great season and, Lim Dorji's keeping Sana Singh out of a position. So it's fascinating. It's fascinating.
Okay, let's move on to another mastermind now, Erik, at least in my view, Ivan Vukomanovic. We saw his team mastermind a victory against Chennai FC at home after going down to that El Kayati goal at the start of the game. But one thing that stood out in that match was the kind of support that the team received throughout the 90 minutes and beyond that as well. Do you think there's a fear factor now, Erik, that teams are experiencing after going to Kochi, where it might not have been the case in previous seasons as their home record reflected earlier?
Absolutely. I think I said it on the weekend that when I played against them a couple of years ago, you licked your lips because you were playing in front of big crowds and you knew that you were going to go down and get a result because the team wasn't that strong. They didn't have the backbone. Vukomanovic has built this team over 2 seasons. Let's not forget this side reached the Hero Indian Super League, took the lead in that game and almost got themselves their first trophy. But going down there to Kochi, you can feel it now. The whole atmosphere has changed. Before the first 10 minutes, the players played with nervous energy. They were giving the ball away. And then after 15, 16 minutes, they just didn't know what to do from that point on. Now, the Kerala Blasters recognised that, I think, against FC Goa. It was around about midway through the season, and Vukomanovic, made 4 or 5 changes. And it worked for him. And now the team understands how to use the energy. They go down to Kochi and it's like, right, this team's behind us. The crowd's behind us. Let's entertain them. When you have players like Raul KP now understanding how to entertain and also how to be an intelligent footballer and not, do all these tricks and flicks every single time, that gets the crowd going. And you need some players like that. And, I would hate to go down and play at Kochi at the moment. If they get themselves into 3rd or 4th position, I think they're going to have a strong advantage in that first game.
Yeah, and they're also going to have a strong advantage. Don't know about advantage actually, Pulas, but there's going to be a large contingent of fans traveling from Kochi to Bengaluru for the next cracking encounter at the Kantirava. It's Bengaluru FC versus Kerala Blasters FC. Huge rivalry. Can you just put that in context for us?
I think to borrow a line from Game of Thrones, in which they say the North remembers, but I think in Indian football, the South remembers. And which is why you kind of see these rivalries. It's Kerala Blasters, Chennai in, Bengaluru, all of these. It all started with a little bit of a spark years ago. I think there was a chant or something, and from then on, it's just kicked on. And I think these are two sets of fans who don't forget.
Yeah.
The West Block Blues, the Manyapara. I think I was speaking with Kuri about this rivalry, and she mentioned episodes about how the Manyapara, there was blue flares lit by the West Block Blues just as the Manyapara were coming through, so that their yellow jerseys will get that blue hue, tinge, for want of a better word. And these are the little cultural things that spark football. It's also the fixture with the highest average attendance at the Kantirva,
Wow.
and by 4,000 or 5,000. So that these guys are going to turn up. At the same time, West Block Blues knows the Manyapara are going to turn up, and the stakes, I think, this time are high. I think it's fantastic that Bengaluru and Kerala Blasters are both on a great run at this point. I think the Blasters more in terms of the previous result. Bengaluru 5 wins in a row. You cannot have asked for more in terms of them wanting to make the tops. It could also end up as one of the knockout games eventually,
Right.
if the table reflects differently. But just the context of this game is what adds so much, and we've missed this. The pandemic seasons were there, but now that it's opened up, what was missing in Indian football? This is what we need: the drama, the excitement, and the sheer involvement of these blue and yellow teams.
Yeah.
You cannot ask for more. It's a big rivalry. I think Erik knows more because he's played on the pitch, and the feeling for him to just put that into words is going to be difficult.
They need the crowd right now. Bengaluru, let's just be honest, they haven't drawn a great crowd at the Kantirva for the last couple of games. This is the game now that's going to, hopefully sell out and get 15, 20,000 people there. And you feel that buzz, you feel that energy when the Blasters are in town, and they always turn up, and there's great rivalry on and off the pitch. And I just feel right now it's so close to call because, the Bengaluru are on a great run of form, 5 in a row, 5 wins on the trot. It's going to take them to, they're going to have to go on 7 wins in a row, possibly, to qualify. Has any team in this league got the quality or the consistency to get 7 wins in a row apart from Mumbai? I don't think they do. So this is key. They've got 3 home games, but the first one against the Blasters, how are they going to turn up? Because I think they already think they've qualified with 31 points. I believe they've qualified with 31 points. But just the rivalry, if I can touch on it again, it's that much more meaningful when you score a goal or if you get 3 points. And right now, I think the Kerala Blasters are, they're an upward trajectory as a club, and Bengaluru were coming down. I think they've kind of stopped now, BFC, and they're just starting to creep back up here. So at the start of the season, I would have said Kerala's up here and Bengaluru is down here. But right now, it could be like this. And psychologically, if somebody gets a result, they could meet in the playoff game, which would be fascinating as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's go a bit now, a bit more below the two teams that we've been speaking about now, and let's look at the likes of FC Goa and ATKMB, Pulast. Both of them need 33 points to mathematically qualify for the playoffs. So can you just tell us what their upcoming fixtures are and where do you see them picking those points up if they are to qualify?
I think tonight's game is so big for ATK Mohun Bagan. At the same time, if you look at that final run of games for ATK Mohun Bagan, Hyderabad, the Blasters, and then the Derby. They have Juan Ferrando might be slightly worried because they look a little hit and miss at this point, and Odisha can pile on the pressure as well, along with Bengaluru. If Odisha and Bengaluru get results in their next game, and ATK Mohun Bagan slip up somewhere, which I think there is a chance, simply because just there's this feeling we don't know which ATK Mohun Bagan is going to turn up.
Yeah.
Is it going to be the one which can go out to Kerala Blasters and beat them 5-2? Is it going to be the one that loses a game after being 1-0 up against Bengaluru at home? Which ATK Mohun Bagan is going to turn up? And I think that little unpredictability about a top side is what makes this top 6 very hard to call. But among all the teams involved, ATK Mohun Bagan have the toughest run of results, I think, with Hyderabad, Blasters and the Derby coming up as those last 3 games.
I'm just looking at this game tomorrow night with Odisha. If they lose that game tomorrow, it's got massive bearing over the league, and they're in free fall at the moment. I don't know how they're going to get 3 points, because right now they haven't found a way. They haven't stopped, and I know they took a draw in the previous game and the one before. But if they lose, and it gives a great chance for FC Goa and ATK Mohnbagan the chance to qualify with a draw or maybe a win. Obviously gets them through. There's some fascinating encounters. I think we all want, as the neutral, to get to that second last game of the season and have ATK Mohnbagan and East Bengal, playing for something. I would have loved to have seen that derby being shifted a bit earlier, but that still might have huge context in terms of ATK Mohnbagan. And I'm quite surprised this year that they're not challenging for the title. So in terms of a team that surprised me this year, they're the ones that haven't really come to the party. I would have thought they'd be challenging for, first and second position, but they've been hot and cold, as Pulasta said.
Yeah.
It's also the knockout performances. The knockout performances from the start of the season, when they're in a must-win situation, they've not done very well. That's one worry. Whether it's the Durand Cup, whether it's later on in other games where they've simply had to win, that's where they've faltered a bit. Even in the AFC Champions League, they faltered a bit in must-win situations, and I hope that's kind of going to play on Juan Ferrando's mind. Pardon me, Suyash, you were saying something else.
No, but just want to ask you, Plus, where do you think it's all gone wrong for ATK Mohnbagan this season? Because they have all the talent in the world on paper. They've gotten a manager last season who was at the peak of his powers at FC Goa. They poached him. They've had him now for about a season and a half now, carrying over. Where do you think it's going wrong for them? Is there something that's sort of there at the surface level, or something deeper?
Sometimes it could be just mentality, could be belief, it could be too many good playmakers in a team at the same time. That could happen. All of them really get defensive in a healthy way when we ask them, "Oh, you don't play with an out-and-out number 9." But I don't think that alone is what the problem is. I just think if Juan Ferrando took one step, and he's a bit of a brooder by admission. He says, "I worry about the game too much. I think about the game too much." I want to see Juan Ferrando have fun with football. And we saw that sometimes at FC Goa. It would be fantastic if Juan Ferrando said, "Go out and play, boys. Show me what you got. We're gonna go back to the basics. All right, let's play some basic football." He won't do that. He's too deeply, he does a deep dive into tactics. If we could take a step back and go back to the basics, I think just lift a little bit of pressure off the players, there might be a change. And I say this without any knowledge or experience of being involved with a club. But I don't know, Erik, what do you think? Does that play on the mind?
Absolutely. I think he's a very deep-set individual, and that certainly rubs off onto the team. They are very individualistic in terms of, let's get Manver and Liston to dribble through everyone. Let's get Hugo Boomers to dribble through everyone. It's not a real set pattern. And by the time they get to the box, they're running into the box rather than crossing. It's not always a way to score a goal. But for me, the biggest one I've seen in recent years, when they've had an injury to a key player, within a week or two, bang, they've got a replacement. So Yoni Kauko, for me, was that missing link that could go into midfield and step in and just be a bit more industrious on the defensive end. So losing him and not replacing him quickly, and if we're being honest about signing Gallego, that was done too late. He's not fully fit, and he's not able to really replace Boomis when he had to serve that suspension. He's going to take a long time to get up to speed. Maybe Gallego has a part to play in the final series, maybe. But right now, the balance is really, it's shifting every week. What's the team going to be? What performance are they going to have? And, Dimmy doesn't stay central. He goes out wide looking for the ball. So the movement is all over the place. And the back four looks so steady 2 games ago. And then the last game that they played there, they got opened up. So I would be a little bit concerned if I was an ATK Mohnbagan supporter, because you don't know which team is going to turn up on the day.
Well, on that note, we have about 8 minutes till broadcast starts, guys. And incidentally, we do have ATK Mohun Bagan playing against Jamshedpur FC in the match today. Huge match for ATK Mohun Bagan, at least for Jamshedpur FC. Not so much. They've really had a season that they themselves might not have expected to have. So just some parting words, Erik, maybe from you on Jamshedpur FC and more so on the likes of East Bengal and Northeast United FC also as well. Is it now just a matter of them starting to look forward to next season and start building towards that, because there's not much to play for this season, is there?
There is, and you're right what you're saying, but what I've seen in the last couple of games with Northeast, with East Bengal, with Jamshedpur, players around about this time have an acceptance. The league's over, the season's finished, they're booking their flights. There also comes a fear factor when you start thinking about, my contract's over, my team hasn't made the finals, I'm out of contract. So what does that throw up? It throws up a fear factor and an intimidation when you go out on the pitch that this may be my last my last game in the Hero Indian Super League. Players think like that. I certainly did. If I knew I was coming out of contract or the team didn't make the 6 or the 4 at that stage, you're worried and you play with more nervousness. So it can work either way for the team. You can go and score a goal early like Chennai, but then to do it over a full 90 minutes, people become quite self-centered as well and thinking about themselves individually. So what the teams have to do when they're playing against these teams down the bottom is wait. They have to wait, let them run out of this nervous energy and, trying to show that they're a good player, because eventually everyone's becoming a little bit too individual, if that makes sense. So I think for Jamshedpur, can they spring a result tonight against ATKMB? I think they can. Krivalara has made a big difference. Northeast, East Bengal, it's season over. So are we going to see the re-signing of key players like a Clayton Silver? Who's going to pick him up next year? So there are things to play for the other players.
That makes sense, Erik. At least from this side, it's always fascinating to get the input of an ex-player such as yourself. So thank you for your time, Erik, and thank you for your time, Pulasta, as well. Enjoy your off day. And here's hoping that we see you back on the field very, very soon, be it pitch side or in the commentary position. So thank you for joining, and thank you to everyone who tuned into this episode of the Let's Football Live show. It's a week which will have a defining impact on what the final positions of the teams are going to be heading into the playoffs. So keep watching the Hero Indian Super League. It's over to Jamshedpur FC versus ATK Mohun Bagan. Now you can catch all the action on the Star Sports Network, Disney Plus Hotstar, and Jio TV. Take care, guys. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
And Jamshedpur have won the Hero ISL. Hyderabad are the Hero Indian Super League champions.